Hi, I'm Dylan McElhatton with Halogen Systems, and today I'm going to show you how to reprogram sensor firmware. Today I'm going to be doing it using one of our municipal low flange side stream sensors. The overall procedure is similar between ballast water, wastewater, and municipal drinking water. The only differences are going to be the part numbers used. The things that you're going to need to be able to complete this reprogramming is going to be a computer, our programming kits. If you're doing a ballast water sensor, you will need kits 0002. If you are doing a drinking water sensor or a municipal space sensor that looks like this and uses an M12 connector, you will want kits 0007. The primary difference is going to be between the box itself. These sensors are shipped with an M12 connector, and this box uses those, and the ballast water ones are shipped with this RS485 adapter. Both accomplish the same thing and allow us to flash new firmware onto our sensors. So, if you have your kit and everything ready, the first thing you're going to want to do is unbox and make sure that you have everything you need, and you have your sensor here. So you'll need our software user guide, which goes through the steps that I'm going to outline right now. It is also going to include the link to the Halogen multi-probe customer software. That software is what's going to allow us to interface with the sensor and program the sensor. You'll need to get in touch with Halogen Systems technical support at tech@halogensys.com or contact your local rep and they can get you the firmware cry file. We update it on a regular basis, usually about quarterly, with various function improvements, performance improvements, as well as bug fixes over time. So make sure to check with us to see what the current firmware version is, and we'll be able to supply you with that file as well. So we're going to go ahead and download the sensor firmware and our program for downloading firmware. The software is called Halogen Multiprobe Modbus version 5 customer version, also known as MP5 Connect. It's going to prompt you to install. You'll get this setup window here. Go ahead and click the setup. This is a safe file. Go ahead and hit run anyway. And the file will begin to download and launch. And this is what our MP5 Connect software looks like. So we have now downloaded the MP5 Connect program, and we're going to go ahead and connect to our sensor. Now with the drinking water kit, using the M12 RS485 adapter, there are two ways that we can connect to our sensor to reprogram and do firmware. They're going to be dependent on where we are going to be supplying power from. The first way that we can do this is going to be supplying power from the display. So if you are going to be reprogramming in the field where this sensor is installed and you're bringing your computer on location, the way that you're going to do the connection there is you're going to use the included M12 male to M12 female cable, and you're going to connect this on the sensor inlet on our display here and tightening this. And then you will take the male side and you will plug into the USB master here. So you're going to go display to master. And you'll spin the connector on the cable. And then you will connect the sensor to the RS485 adapter where it says probe, and this is the wiring pinout here for this connection, which we will cover in a minute. Once I have this connection, you will hear the sensor powering up. So we are now successfully connected to our sensor. Now we need to connect to the computer, and we're going to connect to the computer using the USB-A to USB-B cable that's included in the kit. We're going to plug it in here onto the side of the RS-485 adapter. And you can hear that we have just picked up our sensor in the program, and we have power being supplied by the controller. We know what COM it is because I pressed update, and we're going to press open and scan for boards. You'll know you've established communication as soon as the serial number pops up in the SN line. And shortly thereafter, you should see the rest of our measurements starting to update as well. If you're not able to establish communication with the sensor, there's a couple things that you might have to try. First thing, if you see a checksum error appear in the messages portion of MP5 Connect, you might need to power cycle the controller or your display unit. So unplug it, plug it back in, and then attempt to update and scan for boards again. That should resume. If you do that and you're not getting any errors but no sensor is being found, go ahead and try a different COM address. So you might need to close the port and then go to an additional, say, COM5, or if you have a bunch of other COMs here, you can work your way down the line until you're able to find that serial number of the sensor here. So now that we are communicating with our sensor, we're going to go ahead and update with firmware. So I'm going to go to File, Program DSP, and select address 125, because as you can see here, this sensor is communicating on address 125. We do know what we're doing, so we're going to go ahead and say yes with a capital Y here and hit OK. Now it's going to prompt you to find your firmware. In this case, we will be sending you the CRY file, so just wherever you save that CRY file is where you're going to want to point this. I have just a firmware folder on my desktop, and I'm going to be programming with DSPC 733 2000 DRC7. If you have any questions about our firmware nomenclature, feel free to reach out to tech support and we'll be able to explain. Also, when you ask for our firmware, go ahead and just tell us what your application is and we'll make sure that we get you the right file. Then as soon as you're ready and you've selected your firmware, press open, and this will kick off our firmware loading bootloader program. Each one of these is an address that we're writing specifically to. As you see, we're not getting any errors in this programmer status portion, so this is normal operation. If you start seeing errors over here, you might need to double check your connections to confirm that everything is connected well and that the sensor is getting enough power. This process takes about 1 minute and 45 seconds to write all of the addresses. As soon as it's done completing all of the address rewrite, you'll see an process complete dialog box here. However, this window will not automatically go away, so you're going to need to exit out of it, and I will show you how to do that shortly. And you can see now that we have finished programming the file and it has automatically closed the COM port. However, this window still stays open, so you can go ahead and exit out. We'll come back here and we're going to press open and scan for boards, and we're going to see that serial number pop back up. And the way that we can confirm that we did write our firmware correctly is we're going to go ahead and go over here to Window, and we're going to go to Diagnostics, and we're on address 125. So we're going to go ahead and press Check Board, and that's going to tell us if there's any errors, if we're communicating, and then it's going to say what the firmware version is here. Next to Board Rev is going to be the firmware, so that's 2000. The other place that you can find the firmware version is Window and Settings, and then Read All, and you'll see under here it'll have firmware version, and it's 2000 C7. So we've now updated the firmware on our sensor, and we can now install the sensor back into our system, in which case you'll disconnect the sensor from the RS-485 adapter and reconnect it here to the display. If you are communicating this way to our sensor, don't be alarmed if you notice on the display that you are getting some nonsense values. This is totally normal operation. Unfortunately, we are not able to have two masters during Modbus communication protocol, so only one, either the display or MP5 Connect can act as the master for the sensor. So right now, you can see that the MP5 Connect program has normal values. But if you come here and you look at our display screen, these values do not match what is on our screen, and that's normal whenever you have the RS485 adapter connected. As soon as you disconnect, reconnect the sensor to the display, and then power the display back on, normal operation will resume. So the next way that we can reprogram the sensor is without the display in line. So to do this, we're going to unplug our sensor. We're going to unplug the display. We're going to use the included M12 to 4-pin terminal block connector from the communications kit, and we are going to connect that to the probe. And then we're going to connect that to the 4-pin terminal block. And you'll hear our sensor start to power up. And once again, we're going to come here to the MP5 Connect program. And from this point on, firmware upload is exact same. We're going to go to Update, populate the COM address. We're going to press Open and scan for boards. And you'll see there that the serial number is populated, and we are connected to our sensor. At this point, firmware upload is the exact same. So that is how to update firmware on our sensors, as well as how to connect to our sensor using the MP5 Connect program. If you guys have any questions about this process, feel free to reach out to us at tech@halogensys.com. Look forward to hearing from you.